Three, two, one. You're listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business, marketing, growth strategy, staff, clients, babies, and marriage. I'm Christina. This is Peter. We're founders and leaders of CIPR Communications. And not to let my bias show, but we're being joined today by one of my favorite people of all time.
Yeah, it's a special kind of episode today. We get to have not only our good friend, but actually one of our longest clients, Bev DeSantis, CEO of Tourism Kamloops. Welcome, Bev.
Hi, good morning, you guys.
I still think about, so you were the first person, I guess, or organization that Peter and I pitched together. So before that, I was kind of just off pitching myself. And here I came to Kamloops, 5 months pregnant with twins, pitching you on, hey, want to work together again?
There was never a question. You guys are amazing. And I like it that you travel with me through all my adventures. So that I hopefully will never stop.
Nice. Well, we hope so too. So today we're continuing our series on, what are we talking about today, Christina? I just forgot.
Value of tourism.
Value of tourism. So yes, today we're talking about value of tourism. And really, I would say that CIPR's value of tourism work really started with Tourism Kamloops, and specifically, I think with Bev's brainchild around, we need to do some things. We need to think about tourism in our community. We need to think about how we talk about tourism in our community. We need people to understand the value that tourism brings. I remember our early conversations, Bev, we were talking about the various industries in Kamloops and whether people actually sort of viewed tourism as a major economic driver, which we all know it is. And that sort of almost seemed like an early genesis to conversations that led to where we are today.
So Bev, tell us how that all sparked. I remember, I feel like one of our early conversations was, the blueberry farmer and how his work is tied to tourism in unexpected ways. But walk us through like how value of tourism became an actual thing. And I feel like passion for you.
Yeah, so we moved from Calgary to take this job as CEO of Tourism Kamloops in 2016. And so I didn't know anybody here. And I knew Kamloops. We actually had some businesses here, but I didn't know any people here. And so when we came, it was like tourism was a second thought for people. And even for me, because we had a place in the shoe shop and we would be inundated with visitors. And if any of you are listening, we loved having you. But anyway, but it would have been nice to say, hey, go to Kamloops for a day, or there's this or that. But we never really thought about Kamloops as a destination. I always kind of think of the Okanagan. And so when I came here as a champion of tourism, started having conversations with people, it's just like sport, tournament capital, which we are, and we do really well. And in looking for a place to stay, I'm going, this place is beautiful. Why are we not talking the story of tourism and the amazing places and spaces Kamloops has to offer? So it started me on this path to bringing passion into the community. As a destination developer, you know that if your community isn't on board, you can do all the marketing and spend all the money you want. But if you drive into a gas station as a visitor and you go, so I'm here for the night, what's there to do? And the guy at the gas station goes, yeah, nothing. It's boring here. There's nothing to do.
Next town over, there's better things.
Yeah. Keep going. There's nothing here. And so we needed, as destination developers and tourism advocates, here to bring up the story of tourism. So the first thing we did was launch a study into the value of tourism for Kamloops. And surprisingly enough, it came back with, we have an economy that contributes about $350 million to the economy. And then I started really getting invested in this value of tourism conversation. So to Christina's point, the whole blueberry conversation. So there's 350 million, but really what happens when tourism goes away? What other industries and people does this affect? And so we took the study even deeper. And to the blueberry story point is that was a story that I stole from some other destination. I can't even now remember when, but it was embedded in my brain. So I won't take credit for it, but it's this blueberry farmer. And the blueberry farmer grows blueberries and he delivers them to a restaurant in town. And the restaurant in town makes pies and makes dinners and whatever using these blueberries. And this restaurant in town, well, they hire people and they have linens on their table and they have tables and they have furniture and they pay rent and they pay tax. And not only do visitors come into this restaurant, but also locals. And so this one little blueberry farmer contributes so much to the economy of the places where he delivers blueberries to. Now, exponentially, when you blow that up into even a city as small as Kamloops of about 100,000 people, we realized the value of what tourism brings here, and that conversation is bigger. So I started advocating really strongly with our politicians to pay attention, because tourism wasn't invited to the table on any development conversations. We were kind of an afterthought, or give us money to promote this event. And this was to no fault of anybody. This was just a conversation that never really happened. And it probably took someone like myself, who was not from here, to actually look at Kamloops with fresh eyes going, wow, this place is freaking amazing. And the conversation just isn't happening, even with the community. So I was new to Kamloops. So we started this whole conversation with our elected officials. Then we went out to the chambers and we started talking about this study that we did and the value of tourism exponentially as it reaches across all sectors: transportation, hospitality, restaurants, not your traditionals, retail. Kamloops is one of these places where they come in from all over the place to do their main shopping. Kamloops is a place where you fly into to go to visit other people. And so all these things contribute to tourism. So then the elected officials in the community, the business community at large, started, having the conversations and asking us to talk about the value of tourism. That this was an important driver. And over a year or two, this became very important and top of mind. At the same time, I'm still new here, and the people in the office are talking about all these amazing spaces, and I go, okay, once a month, you guys have to take me to one of your favorite spaces, because I'm working a lot here and I'm not really getting out, and you guys are talking about all these amazing places I'm not going. So it started with me just harassing the group about taking me places that they go in their favorite spots, which I don't know how cool that was, to grab your boss and go, and now that's probably ruined their afternoon and their favorite spot for life. I don't really know, but I was having a good time, and that really was all that mattered. So this kind of evolved into, why just me? Yeah. Like, maybe the whole community needs to have this conversation. And so we created our Loving the Loops campaign. And Loving the Loops is all about Kamloopsians loving Kamloops. And back to my story about the gas station, driving into a gas station and there's nothing to do here. Let's bring on our partners. So we brought on Rocky Mountaineer, because they've got these buses that are kind of not doing a lot during non-Rocky season. And we loaded these buses full of Kamloopsians, and we took them on these drives and to at least 3 different places in an afternoon and showed them their city. Well, these took off. Like, it was like, I never had any idea that we had this, or what a great spot this is. So we got the conversation going, and this was backed up with social media. It was backed up with media. We had media partners on board. We had Peter and Christina on board. We had all, the communications gears going, and this didn't drive visitation. But what it did is it made it so when you stopped at Costco, or when you stopped at the Aberdeen Mall, or when you stopped downtown at a dress store as a visitor and said, what is there to do here? They could say, this. We went there. It was amazing. And so all of a sudden, we're getting people from Kamloops loving their city and really becoming those tourism advocates. And that's where the magic happens. That's where destination development, the value of tourism with your elected officials that bring you into the table, and the community get on board, because all of a sudden you've brought them through this very important process about how important tourism is in a city, and that we have to promote it and we have to get behind it. Now, unfortunately, what happened last March, we all know, is the pandemic. And the pandemic hit, and through no fault of anybody's, all of a sudden tourism came to a standstill.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden people started really realizing what happens when tourism goes away. Retail shuts down, restaurant shuts down, gas stations are not pumping as much gas. And this whole blueberry farmer concept actually comes to fruition. And so the conversations that we've had in the past all of a sudden become very global conversations. All of a sudden, the tourism industry becomes relevant. I always used to complain that the tourism industry was the industry of fun and frivolity, that nobody really took it seriously. And now with the pandemic, the whole world is going, we need tourism back. We need those cruise ships sailing. We need. And the community is going, yeah, let's get behind this. When we're safe and when it's safe to do so, let's bring people back in here. This is important. I need people in my stores. I need people in my restaurants. I need people in my hotels and motels. I need them at my attractions. So through this whole evolution, it's become just an amazing conversation. And I always try to pick up something good that happens out of stuff. And I think now we understand the importance of tourism. Tourism is now invited to the table in our area into city planning conversations. All these official city plans that are happening, we're there. That we're partnering now with the city on the Tournament Capital brand, which is an amazing brand for Kamloops, but it was always a sport brand and never really a tourism conversation. And so that's happening. And so, I couldn't be more happy with the whole evolution of the tourism conversation in Kamloops. And again, thanks to Peter and Christina, because they were the first ones I called in because they get it. And we worked through this together, and we, and then we brought our team in, and then our team got into the conversation, and we brought in Peter and Christina, great with government relations. And so how do you have these conversations with government? And this is very important, because the conversations with your community are much different than conversations with people who want to be elected. And they need to garner votes. So how do you have these conversations where you can just give them those talking points? You guys helped out a lot with giving those key messages to our stakeholders, to our community, and to our elected officials. So it warms my heart to see our mayor and our councillors stand up and talk about these numbers that we've given them in tourism, and especially now how important it is to have these conversations. So when our mayor goes to whatever conferences mayors go to and whatever conversations they have at an elevated level, he's talking about the same key messages that we're talking about to our stakeholders. And those consistent key messages are what will drive the value of tourism conversation, that will bring us into the whole conversation. Anyway, I've monopolized your podcast, but
it's all good. That's why you're here.
I get super excited about this stuff.
It's like the perfect summary to everything we've been talking about so far. So it's perfect. I mean, I remember when you called me up and you said, your vision behind the bus, and you were telling me, and then I don't know, I feel like it was like an hour later, somebody else from the office called me and says, she wants a bus. What are we supposed to do with a bus? And just watching the evolution of your team start to really, Peter, we talked about this in one of the last episodes in terms of like being realistic. And it's like, it's not just marketing anymore. And I think the traditional DMO is so fixated on what's marketing. And now you're pulling in, like you said, government relations, corporate communications, different ways of, stakeholder relations, different ways of doing things. And, your team, you have an amazing team, because they saw that vision and they went, all right, we're doing something crazy way over here, but we like it. We're going to go for it. And and I think based on the pandemic too, and just looking at other communities that we're now working in, the fact that you were able to lay that groundwork from a value of tourism perspective beforehand, I think just set you guys up for so much real excellence, right? The YK Strong campaign, what you guys are doing now, the Love Your Locals pieces, and it gave you a platform to start to talk about that. Whereas, other places were scrambling, right? Whereas you had already built that real local love and advocacy before the crisis,
right? And I think it's not a campaign. Loving the Loops is something that has now become the DNA of Tourism Kamloops. We've now demonstrated, how that comes together. And it comes together. Love in the Loops is residents talking about moving here and living here and the livability of that. So all of a sudden, our real estate association has adopted this conversation.
Right.
The Royal Inland Hospital, attracting doctors and nurses and health professionals to Kamloops. They've adopted this love in the, oh, our community loves our community. I mean, just look at all this stuff. And so it has become not a campaign. It has become part of the DNA conversation of what is Kamloops to live, work, and play here.
Yeah.
And that makes my heart sing. That is the culmination of so much work and so much ingenuity about how we get people excited. So my message would be, even though you've been living in your city for a really long time, or you think you know, or you think everybody knows, they don't know. You know, they don't know until you tell them.
Yeah.
And look at your city with fresh eyes, or have someone come in, you know, like me, or bringing in, you know, Peter and Christina, who are from Calgary, coming into Kamloops, going, hey, you guys, like, this is amazing. I still haven't got them to move here. I'm working on it. It's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years, Bev.
They keep going. I'm going to keep going. It's a great place. But anywho's, yeah, I think it is a very community conversation, and it's building pride in our community. No more is it just industry. They're going, no, look at our beautiful places. And this really helped. Our most recent initiative was Riverside Park. Never before have any sort of commercial business been allowed in our park system. And because of all the groundwork that we have done, we're actually doing a pilot project for water sport rentals in our park. Now, there was still some opposition, about 13 or 14% opposition from the community. But in a 24-hour period, when we heard about this opposition, we were able to gather 60 letters of support from the Chamber, Downtown Business Association, North Shore Business Association, having conversations with our councillors who now get it. When we talk about destination development, we need to move this forward. We cannot stay because we've said no in the past. This is important. And so I know that Riverside pilot project never would have happened without the conversations that have happened over the last 3 and 4 years. So if I'm right now talking to destination developers, economic development, community leaders, lay your groundwork. Always, always have your key conversations with key people, because, you know, like Christina and Peter have told me for years, you need support. You need to be able to build this support behind you in a letter writing campaign and anything, which was another thing that we did, you know, a letter writing campaign about things. And we're a DMO. We have to get approval every 5 years to keep operating from our stakeholders. And if we don't have buy-in, and if we're not demonstrating support for our community and economic development, we're dead in the water, literally.
Yeah.
No,
I love that. I loved how you framed it as it sort of really is just an ongoing conversation, not a campaign. And it really is a community-wide. And I think, you know, credit to you. And I think it was, you know, I think your vision, and frankly, a little bit of, just to your point, sort of a little bit of coming in a little naive, which is a good thing in the sense that you didn't know the people. So it's like, hey, let's go get to know the people. Let's go talk to the people, and, you know, let's have this conversation. I mean, so there was a couple of things that happened sort of leading up to a few of the things you talked about. One is you kind of did a rebrand, which really spoke to those conversations and what you heard and the passion that people had for Kamloops. And I think that rebrand allowed you to create this energy around, you know, these conversations and around, you know, Kamloops is an awesome place, and this is you know, people want to visit here, and there's lots to do, that kind of thing. But then, you know, the other thing I thought that you did was really cool, and I think this is a nice takeaway for any community, is the Together in Tourism declaration from the city, right? I mean, you had the city of Kamloops officially declare, was it 2019?
Yeah, 2019.
The year of Together in Tourism, like officially sort of recognized that, which that's a big deal, right? I mean, now you have the politicians talking about it, you have media talking about it, you have the community talking about it. It's official, right? It's a big deal, right? And I think that's a fantastic. So there was sort of many different components over 5 years now that all have come together. And to Christina's point, I think you're just really well positioned, because, you know, one of the things we talked about recently in our podcast is, you know, with COVID now, I mean, you know, governments are strapped for cash. Who knows what's going to happen when it comes to funding for anything. I mean, all bets are off. Anything can happen. And so, you know, I think you've relayed the groundwork really well, and you guys are well positioned to make your point that, you know, this is an important sort of area that needs support. I don't want to say funding, but needs support.
Right. Yeah, it's a huge conversation, and like we had said earlier, a continual conversation. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Bev.
Thanks for having me. You know, I hate talking about this all the time.
We could tell.
Oh, it's clear.
I'm so excited, and if anybody, you know, Peter and Christina laid the groundwork for this with our team. They were with us the whole way, and they definitely know what they're doing. And that whole government piece, you can't do it without it. And that's where I think lays the difference between you guys. I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but I just love you.
Well, we do appreciate it.
And I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. Is you lay the foundation for having conversations with government. They're different.
Yeah.
I can't say that enough. It is way different.
Yeah.
And the whole package needs to happen. So yeah. And over time it was done. So
thank you for the infomercial. We really appreciate it. We've always appreciated you and your support. You're hired.
You're hired.
But no, we really appreciate you laying it out. I think you really painted a great picture for folks to really understand the various components and how they should be thinking about this, which is, you know, very consistent with what Christine and I have been talking about, which is always a nice bonus. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. There's our episode with Bev, CEO of Tourism Kamloops. Remember, you can follow along on Spotify and iTunes. And of course, follow us on social media, CIPR Comms, and tell us what you're doing with the value of tourism.
3, 2, 1.